Our next guest has 3 other stocks that he says could be on the Reddit hit list. Let's welcome Jared Holtz, Managing Director and Healthcare Sector Specialist at Jefferies. Jared, great to have you with us. I imagine you're getting a lot of questions these days, especially on the heels of this unusual trading activity. In your mind, do you have any doubts that this is the sort of the Reddit crowd going after some of these stocks?
Melissa, thanks a lot for having me. I think part of the issue here is that some of it could be self-fulfilling with investors looking around and trying to identify stocks that have high short interest to begin with, that are now susceptible just based on what we saw over the last couple of weeks with GameStop being, such a high focus single security and driving tons of action across pretty much every single industry group. And with biotech already fairly volatile, it's sort of like an easy area for any Reddit crowd or retail investor crowd to pick on.
Yeah, we're showing the 3 names that you say have high short interest, haven't really seen the moves yet. And I'm wondering if you can sort of walk through, give us a thumbnail sketch of Karyopharm, Madrigal, and Rocket, and why you think these 3 are ripe to be targeted, and what you think the actual fundamentals are in these stocks.
Well, it's a little bit less of a target. It's more identifying single stocks that have higher short interests that have not already moved. I think that's most of the basis on the commentary of those 3 stocks. They're all very, very esoteric or niche in terms of what they do. There's really no overlap between the 3. But looking at companies with anywhere between 15 and 30% short interest, in these cases slightly higher, we could see more of a self-fulfilling situation in terms of stocks that have not gone up a lot, start to get a little bit of a bid. Not to say that, Reddit or other sort of forums are going to drive it, but looking across the spectrum of the sector and identifying stocks that have not yet made their moves so far year to date. And these are 3 that are, Rocket is up a bit on the year, roughly 10, 15%. KPTI is down year to date. And Madrigal is basically flat. So those are 3 that we looked at earlier today, and we sort of thought, okay, is there a chance these get a bid based on high short interest? I think the answer could be yes, but like so many of the panelists and you discussed before, the lack of fundamentals is something that we have to be aware of as well.
Guys, got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. If memory serves, KPTI, I think they gave guidance on January 11th, and I think they report this time next week, I think next Thursday. I know these names are not earnings plays, and I know in the time KPTI just came out with some decent data in terms of a lymphoma study, but you wait for earnings or you get in front of this next week, understanding that's a bit of a loaded question.
It's tough to say. I mean, the stock is already down so much. This is actually a product story. There is revenue here. This is an oncology company that's launching a drug into a pretty big market. They're looking at earlier lines of therapy for various lymphoma treatments. There's a sarcoma pipeline here. So there is something here to back up the valuation. Unlike so many of these high flyers that are pretty much dream stocks or concept stocks, KPTI actually does have real revenue and will have earnings at some point and does have a pipeline. So I don't think it's that risky of a bet. I think, the buy side doesn't typically love these new launch stories because they tend to be, they're fairly volatile in terms of their reaction. And also, given the fact that the company launched the drug during COVID, it hasn't been great for them or for many other companies in the sector that introduce new drugs during a pandemic. So it's tough to know, do you buy it now? Do you buy it subsequent to the quarter? I'm not really sure the quarter is that big of a binary event for them, but I do think it's interesting anyway.
Hey, Jared, it's BK. I'm curious, you're talking to institutional investors all the time. How has this changed their view of their sector? And do you think this Reddit army is just all day traders and retail? Or do you think that there's actually some institutions in there that are trying to create these momentum squeezes?
It's so difficult to say whether there's institutional involvement. I mean, most likely there's some driving it. I think the main effect or significance that the Reddit situation has had is it has created yet another fear factor when it comes to trading these stocks that are already super volatile, that are very binary to begin with. And so you have massive moves across the board sometimes on very little news. Then you add this extra element where you have another faction of the market sort of dictating the outcomes of how these stocks are going to trade. So in my mind, the whole situation has just added more of an unnerving element to what we do every day, which is sort of navigate these waters that are treacherous to begin with. That, I think, is the main significance. And I think it's created a situation where investors, again, they're much more cognizant of some of the short interest levels in these stocks, even if the fundamentals have not changed at all, or in some cases have gotten worse.
Yeah. Jared, great to speak with you. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
Jared Holtz of Jefferies.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.